Hey YouTube, League Turnover Day. So we are back to Great League, Ultra League, and Master League. So this will go over the top Great League teams. So what I'm going to do here is there's updated rankings as you see on the screen. So I'm going to go over the updated rankings, what's risen, what's fallen, and why. And then I'm going to go over, I think, 7 teams that I put together for the first part of the season and go over why they worked, or if they didn't work, how you can make them stronger. And it's basically looking at all Pokemon that got buffed, from Skarmory to Poliwrath to azumarill, like everything that got buffed, and how you make them better if the team didn't work, but a lot of them did work. So new rankings. So we had at the beginning of the season, Skarmory jumped to number 1, and now Lickitung is number 1, Skarmory down to 7. I'll go over the rest of the meta here, but so let's just start with like Lickitung. Lickitung deserves to be number 1. Is the safest in this meta. With Medi gone down, Poliwrath is up, but you have Power Whip, which is super effective for Poliwrath. And then just like in any sort of neutral matchup, you're fine, right? Unless you have like a normal typing or a dark typing come in that just walls your licks. Like those are your biggest issues, but there's not like a super ton of those running around, and it's just generally a safe Pokemon, bulky. Everyone's like, one of the comments on my videos was like, you know that you abuse Lickitung, right? I'm like, yeah, it took me 6 months to get this Lickitung. You're dang right I'm going to abuse it. It is just so strong. Registeel is interesting because Registeel jumped back up to the top, and I think it's strong. I think it's up to the top because Medi's less, Lickitung's more. You do have a lot of Mud Boys, which I'll go over those in a second, but you also, if you look at like 13, 14, Azumarill, Manton, you also have some like other water Pokemon, and Poliwrath, even though it's counter, you can hit super effective with the Zapkin. So I think there's a lot of waters that have risen up, with some fighters going down. So I think Registeel is back up there. Cress kind of gets the Lickitung treatment. Some steals in Registeel and Skarmory, but a lot of Mud Boys. A lot of water, but a lot of Mud Boys, as you see Swampert 8, Quagsire 11, Whiscash 16. Mudboy is double weak to grass, having a grass knot crest, which is super bulky. Notice the future sight, and this is open Great League, and forever it has been Moonblast. Because if you are a psychic, one of your biggest weakness is dark, so having a Moonblast kind of keeps those darks, gives you a check to them. Future Sight is the better move. It gets stab and it's harder hitting. So Future Sight is the better move if in neutral situations. And I think why they put it on is because we saw an increase in Poliwrath, which you can hit super effective with grass, but obviously Future Sight would be better there. And you see an increase in Talonflames. So if you run Crest as a safe swap and a Talonflame or Charizard comes out, you have nothing to throw at it. But now with a Future Sight, you can not only hit super hard, you're probably going to flip a lot of those matchups, especially if it's unexpected. So Crest with Future Sight, I'm interested to actually try that out, because Crest, I didn't love Moonblast on it, but you obviously always had it for coverage. But Future Sight's not a bad move. Gligar, I think Gligar, one of the reasons it's jumped up to number 4 is because I think it's the most versatile flyer, because half ground, you have so many more options against like steals and Bastion and stuff like that. But the other thing is we've seen a huge decrease in A Sand Slashes, which was one of the biggest issues for it last year, because you're double weak to ice. So with A Sand Slash gone and sort of like a Poliwrath increase, but Poliwrath it has Icy Wind, sure, but is also double weak to, not double weak, it is weak to flying. Like it's a nice option there. I'm going to cover all the Mud Boys here because I've already gone over how strong the Mud Boys are. Shadow Swampert 5, Swampert 8, Shadow Quag 11, Shadow Whiscash 16. They only have one weakness, and that's grass. And when you have Skarmory and Talonflame showing up everywhere, you even have a Poliwrath with like a buffed up Icy Wind. You have Flyers and Gligar and Mandibuzz on this list. You have Medi, which still has his Ice Punch coverage. Like, it's tough to actually run grass right now. You have Clodsire, which actually has poison on the fast move, so that would be super effective against grass. So there's not a lot of grass. So the Mud Boys, only having one weakness, are roaming pretty free, and that's why so many are in the top 20. Carping Bastion, I'll just cover those because they're just like Rock Throw, Smackdown, bulky XL Pokemon. Not much to talk about there. Doing a lot of fast move damage. Carping just has more coverage with the Moonblast compared to Flamethrower, so that's why it's ranked higher. I think probably a little. No, it's that product is very, very, very similar. Skarmory, obviously with the Steel Wing buff. Steel Wing is a huge buff. Very RPS. Why I think it dropped is because it's very, very, very RPS. Sometimes you will absolutely dominate matchups. Sometimes you're against a Lantern, as you see at number 9, Lantern, you just lose. You can't throw anything. Steel Wing's resisted, Sky Attack's resisted, Raven Bird's resisted, and they just like farm up, come out with 100 energy, and just kill you. So Skarmory, good Pokemon, but I think a little RPS. Lantern, I just used this Pokemon 100 times in Holiday Cup. It just, again, not a ton of grass. Even ground, you'll hit super effective with Surf. Like, it's just a super, super, super strong Pokemon. Spark is buffed. I don't care what they say. Medi has dropped because the Psychic obviously provided it huge coverage. But Medi still has its like bulk and still has its coverage moves. It still has counter, right? So it's still strong, but just not an all-around safe swap anymore. More of a, I'd say, a fighter specialist with counter dynamic punch and then ice punch for coverage. The other waters I kind of just vaguely went over. Mantine and Azumarill, both bulky. I think Mantine's a little overrated. But when you talk Air Lace Ice Beam, Mantine is bulky. And talk about bulk, Azumarill with buffed up Bubble. I'm probably going to run this. I have a team idea with Azumarill that I'm going to run, so I'm going to see if that works. I mean another one because I already have a top team here. Vigoroth, we just saw a million times the Holiday Cup. The Rock Slide is a huge, huge, huge improvement. I mentioned Clodsire with Poison Sting. A little tough with all the Mud Boys, but it's still very nice. Still like pretty bulky, very spammy, nice coverage overall. So it's still a good Pokemon. And a wall to some Pokemon. I forget right off the like Registeel. Registeel, your ground and your poison. So Focus Blast and Zap Cannon are resisted, so it's just kind of a wall there. Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is kind of sneaky because it's pretty bulky, right? So look at the top Pokemon, like you resist the licks, you hit super effective against Crest, which is now saying Future Sight, and then you're just like, even against like the Mud Boys, Gligar, or anything that's not like Carbink and Bastion, or like Ice or Electric, like even Ice Electric, you can probably just hang in there for a decent amount. So it's pretty strong Pokemon. And then the only other one on this list, I already kind of talked about Poliwrath being so super strong with all Icy Wind and Scald, just both buffed. Or no, I mean, Scald is buffed. It now has access to Icy Wind, so that's just an improvement there. And then Stunfisk, I think it's back on the list because of the increase in like Registeel and Crest in the top 3, which makes it sort of a little bump in the rankings there. So let's go over some teams that I have put together in the past. I started with Skarmory. So this team should not look new. Steel Wing Skarmory with a Sableye Swampert. Skarmory's Swampert core has been like an OG core since like season one. Just Swampert's only weakness is grass, and you super cover grass with a Steel Flyer and then Sableye as a safe swap. Like, this is a very, very old, tested team. That's now just gets a little bit of a buff because Skarmory is buffed this season. So don't want to talk about that one too much. This one, same sort of idea. It's basically just a balanced team with Talonflame, right? Talonflame and Incinerate got buffed. Weak to water and weak to rock. So I think for the most part, Superior is going to handle both of those very, very easily. And Lickitung safe swap. So again, just a very balanced team. Lickitung is your safe swap. If you see a water, or you see like a lantern, or you see a rock, you just get out into Lickitung, try and flip, and then Superior in the back. Again, two very pretty easy teams to use. This one I built around Vigoroth just to see how good the Rock Slide improvement is, and it is very good. In terms of team comp, it's sort of a balanced team, right? Because you have Lantern, main weakness is going to be ground and grass, and Gligar in the back is going to deal with ground and grass overall, and then you have Vigoroth as your safe swap. So again, it's a very in these early matchups, I just went with a lot of balanced teams, and the balanced teams do work. And Vigoroth is a very, very, very good safe swap, as you've probably seen in the Holiday Cup, and if you've used it earlier in the Great League, it's now one of the top 5 safe swaps in Great League right now. So I think you can pretty much pair, not almost, but a lot of like duo pair Pokemon and just use Vigoroth as your safe swap. Azumarill. So this was so I start with Azumarill, and then I'm like, okay, what is your weakness? Your weakness is electric. Your weakness is grass. So then I put in Dragonair because I'm like, Dragonair is generally safe, and Dragonair's weakness is like ice, which Azumarill will deal with. But then it's also like it's got a fairy weakness. So I'm like, okay, I'll cover that fairy weakness with Registeel because Registeel is generally pretty safe. So that's a team. I think it worked decently well just because Dragonair is pretty just good in even neutral situations. And then Registeel obviously has been dominant for so many seasons now. I ran Hydro Pump and Play Rough on this in this team. But you can definitely, if you want more coverage for, let's say, I mean, you don't need a ton of coverage for Gligar because the Bubble, Hydro Pump, and then Dragon Breath Aqua Tail is probably going to cover Gligar. But if you're really worried about like something like Clodsire, I mean Clodsire you just need to run Play Rough anyways. But you can run like Ice Beam Play Rough instead. But you need Play Rough for the Lanturns and you need Play Rough for Clodsire. No, not Clodsire. Clodsire resists everything. Sorry, scratch that. Azumarill is going to get killed by Clodsire no matter what it runs. No, Clodsire is weak to ice and water. Sorry. What other Pokemon am I thinking of? Clodsire is weak to ice and water. So you can stand with it. I was just thinking that it's just so poison that you're going to lose anyways. Like Tentacruel. Tentacruel resists everything. I use Ninetales here because I wanted to see buffed Fire Spin. I love Ninetales. It's not that the team is bad, right? Ninetales' biggest problem is gonna be like Lantern. I mean, it's gonna be all waters like Lantern, Swampert, stuff like that. But Lantern you see the most, so just kind of Medi and Quagsire to deal with that. In the back, Quagsire's only weakness is grass. Ninetales and then Medi as a safe swap, but Medi can't be really used as a safe swap. So I don't know if I'd love this team. I don't mind covering Ninetales' weakness with Quag. It's just like Medi with Dynamic Punch is not a good safe swap anymore, so this team lacks in a safe swap. So if you're going to use this sort of like core of Ninetales and then like covering Ninetales' weaknesses, you need a better safe swap than Medi because Dynamic Punch is not cutting it. Scald Whiscash. I think Whiscash is a very, very strong upgrade this season. Like that Scald is a huge improvement, and if you have a Shadow, it's even better. I do not. So this is just, again, a very, very balanced team. Whiscash, only weakness is grass. Cover it with Gligar Flyer. And I used Umbreon as a safe swap. That's more of an old school pick for safe swap, but Umbreon was one of the go-to safe, like the go-to safe swap in like seasons 1 through like 4. It kind of went away for a bit, but I still think it's very strong in this meta, so you can use it as a safe swap. I think this last team I put in was, what did I test here? Is this just a strong team? Yeah, usually I think this team is actually built around Credilli because I remember that Credilli was a core breaker because what we were seeing all the Mud Boys and Lantern. So you have the grass for that. But we also seen a lot of flyers in like Talonflame. So having a Rock Slide that does super effective against Talonflame was a core breaker. So that is actually how we started the team. You're weak to fighting is your main one. So I covered that with Defense Deoxys. And then Toxapex, I put in... what did I put in Toxapex? I don't actually remember the reason I put in Toxapex. I think Toxapex is generally decently strong. I think everyone expected Toxapex to rise up a bit. But I don't know why you would use Toxapex over Clodsire right now. Because Clodsire at least gives you a little more coverage for like a Lantern. And a little more coverage against like Mud Boys. So I think if you have a Clodsire, I think Clodsire is a better version of Toxapex. If you don't, I think Toxapex is okay. That is it. Stay tuned for Ultra League teams this afternoon. And then I've got a couple already Great League teams banked from earlier in the season, so I'll test those. But I think my focus this week will probably be Great League and probably starting to try to do a little bit of a run here. We're going to go with some try-hard teams in Great League now. So that is it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.